Hey amigos, I just got back from a few errands. There's this nice locally owned teriyaki shop that makes some awesome fried rice. Highly recommended. And it's about a block away. I like keeping business local. I just got back from buying a couple $1,000s in gold. And because these are what they call proofs. They're like extra shiny, and the factory or the mint charges a little bit more for these because they're like buffed or something. And but he sold them to me for what you call it, bullion prices, which was kind of neat. I was dealing with the owner of the locally owned coin shop. So I got myself 10 of these things, and I will run those into the bank box. I no longer have room for silver. I'm on the waiting list for a bigger safe deposit box, but until then I'm sort of stuck with buying gold. Well, there are worse problems to have. You know, I think I'd like to discuss the velocity of money now that I've just taken a couple $1,000s out of circulation basically and preserved it. It sort of brings to mind how governments make money off of the currency, you know, and how there are two ways. There's like taxation, and then there's the hidden tax of inflation. But everybody knows that, of course. But it's really a powerful system for governments to be able to basically make money off of every single transaction that's out there. It's kind of bizarre because imagine you get like $100, right? There's my $100 bill. Very poor rendition of one. Now, in order to earn that $100, I had to probably pay about 10% or so in various taxes, maybe a little more, something like that. So basically, when the moment I got that dollar, I already paid the feds, say 10, right? And then I want to spend it, right? So I spend it and I give it to the teriyaki shop. And in order to do that, it's a restaurant, so I have to pay sales tax. So that's about 9 point something other whatever, and that's another $10 for, or if I spend $100, and I do over a period of months. But that's basically Washington State and a couple of different, like our local municipalities and stuff. They sort of like vultures descend upon that to sort of get their piece. And then when I sold it to when I bought my teriyaki from the teriyaki shop, that's basically income. So for the store, and since it's a small business, of course they pay a lot of taxes. If it was a big, huge business, government would actually subsidize them. You know, like Walmarts and stuff when they're put up. Oftentimes the local municipality sets up some kind of loan, if I understand correctly, and then they devote all of the tax receipts that are sales tax receipts to paying for the store. So the store is basically free for the big chain store, right? Well, that's anyway. But since they are not a big store, they pay income tax and B&O tax and taxity tax and tax on the electricity that the store has to use to cook the fried rice. And basically, let's call that another $10 or so for them. And so that's another $10 so they pay income tax, and of course when they sell it they have to pay like a sales tax, right? Well, anyway, then they want to buy what do they buy? Oh, groceries and stuff like that, but they're not necessarily, I think they're a business, so they don't have to pay sales tax on the dollars they spend for their supplies, like rice and chicken and stuff like that. So they don't have to pay that sales tax. Well, anyway, then the companies which make the money when they go to the chicken place or supplies, they basically, of course, they have to pay income tax, and all their employees have to pay income tax and all that nasty stuff. So it just continues on. Every time a dollar changes hands, there's always a municipality or a federal government to take their little piece, right? And then the same dollar, $1 over a period of a month or so could easily earn the feds and the states the same amount of money as the dollar itself. So pretty soon, after a while, when you add it all up, it's more than the dollar itself as it's floating through the system. Now then of course they kind of laugh at, they hate it of course when we just earn $1, right? Pay our income tax on it to the feds. They hate it when it just sits there. I got like $6,000 in my checking account because I have no life. And the money just sort of piles up, right? Well, anyway, they hate it when that happens, but the feds, they have a backup plan for taxation. They call that inflation, right? And probably about 8% or so, unless you follow their numbers. If you believe their numbers, there's like no inflation. But if you follow the real numbers, it's probably 8 or 9%. So every single year that this thing sits in my checking account, the feds, they basically scoop about 10% off of it and then laugh, and basically it's as if they sneak into your bank account and just pull $10 out of your $100 or $9, and then they just laugh. And well, anyway, now I'm laughing because I took my extra dollar that would have just sat there, and I actually just put it into some 10th ounce gold eagles, right? Now the feds, they do things like they attempt to short the market and make panics, and then they put the brainless prostitutes, what do they call them? The corporate media. They put those people out there to basically, they're all down on gold, right? But basically, whenever economies do collapse, if the people who have the gold, they can manage to avoid it being seized, then they have a significant amount of money. Whereas, like in Argentina, they had their bank holiday and then they inflated the currency dramatically. People who supposedly had dollars in their bank account, they were just flipped over to whatever their currency was, and then they lost boatloads of money. Well, anyway, the same people who had regular old gold in their if they were smart enough to get it out of the bank, and I'm considering something like that myself, but let's not go into that. But basically, those people, they were able to continue on, right, and keep some of their hard-earned money in their hard-earned labor in the form of gold. So if they wanted to buy a car or if they wanted to buy a house, they had the ability to do so. And supposedly a regular old 1 ounce silver coin or silver bullion round was enough to buy a family pretty good groceries for a week. So, so basically we have a choice, you know, of spending the money, holding on to the money and having it inflated, and then, or put it into gold, right, or silver, and if we can avoid loss or seizure, we'll probably have our spending power, right? Now, the feds also like it when you spend the money and it goes overseas, right? Because basically it's the same as if it's in your checking account, because all that money is overseas and it just goes out, and these people don't vote, right? And the feds, they can inflate the money all they want, and it won't cause too much local inflation. But all of that money that's over there, it's basically the feds can actually somehow sneak over to China and open the vaults and take 10% or 9% of all that money every single year. So the bigger the huge amount of money that's in existence, they can inflate it and make even more. And so what they hate, I mean, they would love it the most of all if we spent the money probably locally and it continued floating through the economy. Meanwhile, the feds and the local governments would just be taking their chunks off of it every single time the dollar changed hands. Or, the second thing they would like is for us to spend it overseas and then they can inflate the crap out of the money overseas and then they can build war materials and cruise missiles and stuff. This is how little they value the money. They buy it, and then they buy smart bombs and cruise missiles and then blow them up. I could do something better with that money, personally. Well, anyway, then, of course, the third favorite thing would be to just leave it in the checking account. This is from the government perspective, so that they can inflate the shit out of it, right? What they really don't want you is for you to escape the system and go into precious metals or paid for real estate or doing things like paying off debt. Because basically if you pay off debt, it's as if you take that dollar and it's there and then poof, it's as if from their perspective you just burn it, right? Because it'll not then go through the system. And it will also not inflate, and it will also basically not able to be sent overseas to give them money from inflation, right? So if you pay off debt with that, they hate that just as bad as buying gold. And during the time that I had debt, I paid like 5.5% on my mortgage. I figured I could not get a better rate of return anywhere that was guaranteed that big for for my money. So I figured, hey, every time I throw an extra $1,000 into the mortgage, boom, I'm making effectively 5.5%. Because for the last few years, actually, my mortgage was too small to make it worth deducting. So I was paying big time single man tax, and yet I still couldn't deduct anything. So basically what I did just now was I had like 6,000 or so, 7,000, I can't remember exactly what, in the checking account. Just bought a couple thousand in gold, I'll jam that into the bank because for the time being that's the safest place for it. And then I am out of the system. And then these things cost me about $200 or so each, right, with the markup. And in time, I'm sure that I'll be able to get more than that for it. Probably within like maybe 2 or 3 years. So, although, well, we'll see. I do plan to cash in a good chunk of that stuff to buy my super duper homestead that I've been wanting. So, that's the velocity of money. How many times money changes hands in, say, a year or a month or whatever. Basically, that's the velocity of money. Now, there are other situations where people are like treating dollars like the hot potato that they are. When inflation really starts hitting, people want to get rid of that money as fast as they can. And then all the money that's like my $6,000 that was in the bank, which is now $4,000. Well, anyway, if it was like 10% a month or so inflation, which happens, I would want to take that money out and get it out of there and do something, anything with it. If I can just get it out of there. And when that happens, you value the money very little, and then inflation really, really starts hitting in because, I mean, people normally buy a certain amount of stuff every month, right? But when that inflation starts hitting, people really want to get rid of that money, so they're willing to pay more, and therefore prices will rise even faster, and then that can cause the whole system to like immolate or burn up, basically. Inflation just goes really crazy because all that money on the sidelines is now, boom, right into the same fray with everybody else's money, like monthly checks and stuff, to get anything of value, anything, cars, engines, old fuel tanks, gasoline in barrels, or anything. And that of course drives the prices up. Then the people with monthly checks suddenly discover that they don't have enough money to survive once that real serious velocity increases. Then they start throwing firebombs and shit. And governments hate that. So basically, that would be too fast of a velocity. But governments do like a certain amount of velocity because they get to take a big cut every single month. But when it starts speeding up too much and inflation starts really hitting, then basically people then it causes massive inflation. Now, that's one of the reasons why the feds, of course, lie to us about the inflation numbers. Second reason is, of course, because all of the people who have busted their butt and earned Social Security, those people, they would have to give them a raise if the government acknowledged that the prices that they have to pay are actually going up. So they say, there's no inflation, what's the matter with you old people? Well, anyway, so that's the velocity of money. And I have just taken another chunk and saved some of my hard-earned earning potential and or labor, and I've preserved it, and I've pulled it out of their crazy fiat inflation scam, and this is real gold. Our whole civilization could collapse, and that gold would still be there, and it would still be gold. Sure, I can't eat gold, but I got a lot of rice too. So the money that I put into preps like rice and beans and stuff like that, that's as good as gold. So preps. So basically, if you're in a situation, I would highly recommend, if you have a few extra bucks and you don't have preps like food, water purification, a firearm, some means of self-defense, I would say get yourself at least several months of of backup food and other stuff that you would need. And then afterwards you can start buying silver and gold and stuff like that. So that's for the newbies, although almost everybody on my subscription list has probably been around the block a few times. So that's the velocity of money. I guess I'll let you guys go. I've bored you enough. Let me know what you guys think of this. Later.